Parker Schnabel was deep in the wilderness when he came across something that did not look normal. In front of him stood a giant machine, old, damaged, rusted, and forgotten. It was a huge trommel, a massive steel tube that had once been used for gold mining long ago. Most people would have seen it as junk, but Parker did not walk past it. He stopped, looked at it carefully, and felt that this machine had a story hidden inside it. The machine looked like it had been standing there for decades, untouched by anyone. The forest had started to swallow it. Plants and branches were growing through its rusted holes. Dirt, mud, and thick grime covered every inch of it. But behind all that, Parker felt something strange. Something about this old trommel felt different. It almost felt like it was hiding a secret. As Parker got closer, he brushed his hand across the metal. It was cold, rough, and covered with layers of rust. But then, something caught his eye. A small opening on the side of the trommel had a shine inside it. At first, he thought it was just a piece of metal catching the light, but when he leaned closer, he froze. It was gold, a tiny sparkle, but enough to make him look again. This was the moment things changed. This was not just a broken old machine. This was a treasure chest waiting to be opened. Curiosity hit him hard. He started scraping the dirt off the edges, trying to look deeper inside. The more he cleared, the more he could see. What looked like just a little shine soon turned into a bright glow. There was a lot of gold inside this machine. It was unreal. How could so much gold be hidden here without anyone knowing? Parker stepped back for a moment and tried to understand how this was even possible. Old mining machines were not very efficient. They worked fast, but they often failed to catch small pieces of gold. Millions of tiny gold particles would slip through the screens and end up stuck inside different parts of the machine. Over time, all those little pieces could build up. And now, after decades, that buildup had turned into a huge amount of gold. As Parker looked at this giant trommel, he realized that this forgotten machine might be worth more than any modern mining setup he had worked on recently. It was unbelievable to think that something left to rot could hold so much value. He wondered how long it had been sitting here and why no one had ever come back for it. As he walked around the machine, he noticed old signs of mining activity. Broken tools, collapsed wooden beams, old equipment scattered around like pieces of history. It was clear that long ago, a mining operation had been operating here and that the machine had been a great source of wealth. Parker was so excited that he could not wait for the sun come up so he could start tearing the giant machine apart and uncover the hidden treasure inside it.
Big mining operation had taken place here, but something had gone wrong. Something had caused the workers to leave everything behind. When Parker talked to locals in nearby villages, they told him stories that had been whispered for years. According to them, the mine had shut down suddenly. Some said the owners ran out of money. Others believed the operation had problems they could not fix. And then there were people who believed that the land itself had become too dangerous. Whatever the truth was, the result was the same. Everything was abandoned overnight, including this massive trommel left here to decay in the wild. But what shocked Parker the most was how no one had ever returned to check on it. How did no one notice that gold worth hundreds of millions of dollars had been sitting inside it for decades? It was one of the biggest mysteries he had ever come across. But now that he had found it, he knew he could not just leave it there. He needed to move it, fix it, open it up, and see exactly how much gold it held. Moving it, however, was not going to be easy. The machine was enormous. It weighed many tons. It had been sitting on soft ground for years, and half of its structure had sunk into the earth. Pulling it out would require cranes, heavy trucks, and a lot of planning. One wrong move, and the machine could break apart, and all the gold inside could be lost forever. But Parker's team was used to big challenges. When he told them about the trommel, they immediately got to work. They cleared the area around it, cut branches, dug around the base, and slowly prepared a path where their machinery could reach it. Days passed as they worked. Rain came and made the ground slippery. The sun dried the mud and made the rust even more fragile. But none of that stopped the team. They knew something huge was waiting inside that machine. Finally, with the help of cranes and trucks, they managed to lift the giant trommel out of the ground. It took hours of careful movement, inch by inch, making sure nothing cracked or collapsed. When they finally loaded it onto the truck and secured it for transport, everyone felt a sense of victory. The real work was only beginning, but they had completed the hardest part, getting the machine out of the wilderness. When they brought the trommel back to their workshop, they saw just how much damage time had done. Rust covered every corner. Gears were broken, screens were torn, bolts were missing. The drum inside, the heart of the machine, was nearly falling apart. But instead of seeing a wreck, Parker saw potential. He told his team they were not only going to fix the machine, they were going to rebuild it better than before. They began taking it apart piece by piece. Every panel, every bolt, every gear was carefully removed, cleaned, repaired, or replaced. It was long, slow, and exhausting work. Sometimes it felt like the machine was too far gone. Sometimes it felt like the rust had eaten too much of the metal. But no one gave up. They knew what was hidden inside. While the repairs continued, Parker decided to test the dirt around the place where the trommel had been found. The results shocked everyone. The dirt was filled with gold.
Not just a little, but more gold than Parker had ever seen in raw ground. It was like the land itself was giving him signs. This was a rich site, a forgotten site, a place that had once produced huge amounts of gold, and it even more waiting beneath the surface. When the team started processing the dirt using a small setup they built nearby, gold poured out steadily every day. The value kept rising. Tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, then millions. The numbers were unbelievable. And all of this was before they even opened the trommel fully. Inside the workshop, the trommel slowly began to change. What once looked like a pile of rusted metal was now turning into a strong and reliable machine again. As each part was repaired, the team learned more about how old mining technology worked. They noticed places inside the machine where gold might have slipped through over the years. These small gaps had allowed gold dust and tiny pieces to get stuck deep in the machine. The idea that so much gold had collected inside over decades made the team even more excited. They worked carefully, knowing that every bolt they opened might reveal more gold hidden in corners that had been untouched for years. When they finally opened the main drum of the trommel, everyone gathered around. The inside was filled with thick, dry dirt that had hardened over time. It looked like nothing special at first, but Parker knew this dirt had a story. They started breaking the dirt apart slowly, and soon, small gold flakes began to appear. It was enough to make everyone stop and look closer. The more they brushed away the dirt, the more gold began to shine. It was like opening a treasure chest buried for a lifetime. Piece by piece, they removed the gold-rich dirt and placed it into containers so it could be processed carefully later. But that was only the beginning. The team kept removing layers, and each layer revealed even more gold. Some pieces were small, like grains of sand, while others were bright flakes that glowed even under the workshop lights. Parker realized that the rumors he had heard were true. This was not just any abandoned machine. This was part of a much bigger mining operation that had once produced an incredible amount of gold. And somehow, all that lost gold had found its way into this machine, hiding here, waiting for someone brave enough to restore it. While cleaning the machine, Parker's crew found old papers stuck behind a rusted panel. They were dirty, torn, and stained by time, but still readable. These papers were records and notes from the miners who had worked here long ago.
They mentioned other sites connected to this one. It looked like this trommel was not a lonely machine. It was part of a large mining network. That meant there could be more abandoned machines or even more. Gold-rich ground nearby. These papers were like a map to hidden treasure. For Parker, this discovery made everything even more exciting. Not only had he found a gold-filled machine, but he had also uncovered clues that could lead to more gold than he ever expected. As the team kept cleaning the trommel, they noticed that many places inside were packed with old dirt that had never been washed properly. In modern mining equipment, dirt gets cleaned out regularly, but old machines like this didn't catch everything. That meant a lot of gold stayed stuck inside the machine. Over the years, it had built up layer by layer, forming a thick mixture of dirt and gold. This mixture was precious. Every handful had value. Every scoop could be worth thousands. The team collected every bit of it carefully and stored it for later processing. No one wanted to waste even a single grain. Eventually, after days of nonstop work, the machine looked completely different. The rust was gone, the broken parts were fixed. New technology was added to make it stronger and more efficient. When the team stepped back and looked at it, they could hardly believe it was the same machine they had found buried in the forest. Now it looked powerful, ready to run again, ready to produce gold like it once did many years ago. When the moment came to turn it on, everyone felt nervous. The machine had not run for decades. No one knew if it would work smoothly or break apart. Parker gave the signal, and the engines started. The drum began to spin, slowly at first, then faster. The sound echoed through the workshop. It was like waking up a sleeping giant. The machine shook off years of silence and came alive again. The water started flowing, the screens started shaking, and soon the first bits of processed dirt began to come through. Then something amazing happened. Gold started appearing again. Fine particles, bright flakes, and small nuggets flowed out of the machine as if it had been waiting all these years just to release them. Everyone watched in silence as the gold poured into the collection trays. It was a moment of pure achievement. The old machine that had once been considered useless had now become a gold-producing powerhouse. It was one of the most successful restorations Parker and his team had ever done. Over the next days, this was not just a mining site. This was history. This was a place that had seen dreams, failures, success, and struggle. For Parker, this made the gold even more meaningful. It was not just something pulled from the ground. It was part of a story that had been forgotten for too long. Now, every piece of gold they found was like a piece of the past being brought back to life. Back at the workshop, the restored trommel continued to work perfectly. Each day, it ran smoothly, washing dirt, turning rocks, and separating gold like a new machine. It was almost hard to believe that just weeks earlier, it had been rusting in the wilderness, looking like it would never move again. Now it stood as a strong example of what hard work and belief can achieve. Parker often watched it run and felt proud. He knew this restoration was more than just a project. It was a lesson in patience, effort, and vision. It proved that success does not always come from new technology or expensive tools. Sometimes it comes from seeing value where others see nothing. The gold collected from the trommel kept surprising everyone. Some days they found bright, thick gold flakes. Other days they found small nuggets that shined under the lights. Sometimes they found fine gold dust in large amounts. All of it added up, turning into a massive pile worth millions. The machine had become a gold mine on its own. Every hour it ran added more value, and every piece of gold collected reminded them of the treasure that had been hiding inside all along. But Parker knew the job was not over. Restoring the machine was only one part of the journey. Keeping it running would take just as much effort. Old machines always needed care. They needed cleaning, checking, oiling, and regular repairs. A single mistake could cause a breakdown. But Parker's team was ready for the challenge. They respected the machine. They treated it like an important part of the team because they knew how much it had given them. This attitude made the machine run even better. It performed like a new piece of equipment, proving that age did not matter when something was given proper attention. As Parker continued to find more gold and learn more about the site's past, he realized how much this discovery had changed him. He had always believed in working hard and never giving up, but this was different. This experience showed him the true meaning of looking beyond the surface. It taught him that great opportunities are often hidden behind dust, dirt, and rust. It also reminded him that history should not be forgotten. The miners who once worked here had dreams just like he did. Even though they had left, their work had remained, waiting for someone like Parker to uncover it again. Word about Parker's discovery spread among the mining community. People were amazed that an old, broken machine could hold so much gold. Many miners began to rethink how they approached abandoned sites. Instead of ignoring old equipment, they started paying attention to it. They wondered how many more forgotten machines might be hiding gold inside them. Some miners even visited Parker to learn from his experience. They wanted to understand how he had found the machine and how he had restored it. Parker shared his knowledge freely because he believed that everyone should learn from the past, not just one person. The local community also appreciated what Parker and his team had done. They saw how carefully the team handled the land and how they replaced broken parts of the area with better systems. They liked how Parker used both old methods and modern technology to create a balance between mining and protecting nature. Many people felt that this was a new direction from mining, a way to respect both the land and the history behind it. For them, the Trommel was not just a machine, it was a symbol of hope and responsibility. It showed that mining could be done in a smarter and more caring way.
As the days went by, Parker and his team grew even more connected to the site. Every discovery, no matter how small, felt like uncovering a secret from the past. Each piece of gold that emerged from the Trommel was more than just wealth. It was proof that patience and attention to detail paid off. The team began to take pride not only in the gold itself, but in the process of discovering it. The restoration of the old equipment had taught them lessons about perseverance, creativity, and respect for history that no classroom could ever provide. The atmosphere around the workshop was electric. Workers who had once been skeptical now moved with purpose, knowing that every task they completed brought them closer to uncovering more treasures hidden beneath layers of dirt and stone. Parker watched the crew as they worked, noticing the sense of pride in their movements and the careful way they handled each nugget and fragment. He realized that this project was about more than gold. It was about teamwork, trust, and the shared excitement of discovery. The Trommel, which had once sat abandoned and lifeless, had become the heart of their operation. Its rhythmic movement, spinning and shaking with precise efficiency, symbolized both the past and the present, the old craftsmanship of miners long gone, and the modern techniques Parker had applied to make it work again. Beyond the gold and the machinery, Parker also became deeply interested in the history of the site itself. He spent long hours reading old records, talking to local historians, and comparing notes with veteran miners. Every scrap of information added context to what they were finding, making the experience feel richer and more meaningful. He discovered stories of miners who had risked everything for a chance at fortune, who had failed but never given up, and who had left behind more than just tools. They left a legacy of ingenuity and hope. Parker understood that the work he was doing was part of a much larger story, one that connected generations across centuries. One morning, as Parker examined the pile of gold collected from the Trommel, he noticed something unusual. Mixed in with the familiar flakes and nuggets were tiny fragments that seemed to have been overlooked in earlier processing. These fragments had unusual markings, faint inscriptions that suggested they were more than just raw gold. Parker carefully collected them and brought them to a specialist, who confirmed that they were remnants of ancient coins, likely melted and repurposed long ago. The discovery was small, but it reinforced the idea that the site held layers of history, each waiting to be uncovered. Even a simple machine like the Trommel could reveal secrets that had been buried for generations. Parker began to experiment with new methods to improve recovery. He adjusted the angle of the Trommel, fine-tuned the water flow, and added screens to catch even the tiniest particles. Each adjustment led to more discoveries, reinforcing the lesson that careful observation and thoughtful experimentation were as valuable as brute force or expensive equipment. The Trommel, which had once sat abandoned and lifeless, had become a laboratory, a place where science met history and where the smallest changes could lead to big rewards. As the gold continued to accumulate, Parker reflected on what this experience had taught him. He realized that success often came to those who were willing to see potential where others saw decay. The machine, the site, and even the gold itself had been overlooked for decades, yet with attention, care, and belief, they had revealed their value. Parker's journey showed that true treasure wasn't just the metal that glittered in the sunlight. It was the knowledge, the stories, and the human effort embedded in every piece of the past. Word of Parker's work began to spread far beyond the immediate mining community. Reporters, historians, and enthusiasts came to see the Trommel in action and to learn from Parker's approach. They marveled at the way he had combined old-world ingenuity with modern methods, turning a forgotten relic into a powerful tool of discovery. Many visitors took notes, eager to replicate his techniques, while others simply watched in awe as gold, history, and human persistence came together before their eyes. Parker welcomed every question and shared every detail, believing that the lessons of the past should be shared widely, not hoarded. Over time, Parker's respect for the land and the history of the site grew even stronger. He realized that mining could be done responsibly, with care for both the environment and the legacy of those who came before. Every decision, from repairing broken equipment to carefully cataloging every piece of gold, was informed by a sense of stewardship. The Trommel became more than just a machine. It became a symbol of balance between human ambition and respect for nature. The team began teaching others about sustainable practices, showing how they could uncover hidden value without destroying the history or integrity of a site. Even the smallest discoveries seemed to carry lessons. Tiny gold flakes or fragments of old tools reminded Parker that no effort, no matter how small, was wasted. Every action, every careful adjustment of the Trommel, every decision to preserve rather than discard, contributed to the larger story. In this way, Parker began to see mining not just as a pursuit of wealth, but as a way to honor the past and contribute to knowledge for the future. Each day at the workshop was a lesson in patience, creativity, and responsibility. The gold collected was not only a reward for hard work, it became a measure of their team's progress and dedication. With each passing day, the pile grew, representing both the tangible value of their work and the intangible rewards of perseverance. Parker often stood back and reflected on how far they had come, remembering the days when the Trommel had sat broken, abandoned, and forgotten. Now it ran like new, producing results that no one had thought possible. The experience reinforced a profound truth. Sometimes what seems old, broken, or useless can become the most valuable treasure if approached with vision, care, and determination.
As the team continued working, Parker realized that the gold they were finding was only the surface of a much larger mystery. The land itself seemed to hold secrets, layers of history waiting to be uncovered with the right combination of patience, skill, and curiosity. They began exploring areas beyond the immediate site, following subtle clues in the soil and old maps that hinted at hidden chambers and forgotten workings. Each step forward was cautious. Parker knew that one wrong move could disturb centuries of careful construction, or worse, damage